You're listening to the Super Domestique podcast, Canada's premium cycling podcast, brought to you by the Last Drop Cycling Club.
Welcome back, listeners. This is Super Domestique episode 9. This is our season finale, and what a finale we have for you today. We have Erin Waugh. She's joining us from Cycling BC. Hello, Erin. Good morning. It's early.
Good morning. Thanks for having me. This is a great opportunity. Appreciate it.
No, thank you for joining us today. And it's an early morning here in North Vancouver. So happy that we're looking like it'll be sunny next week. It's been a torrential downpour for the last 10 days.
Yes, it's been quite something. I was in Toronto last weekend, and it was 30 degrees. So coming back here to this rain and cold has been, not so appreciated.
Yeah, a lot of us are off to race Paris to Ancaster next week. I didn't know I'd be so excited to go back to Ontario, but who knows? I'll show up on race day and it'll snow.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. You just never know.
So I wanted to talk about something that probably affected all of us in Canada and BC, made us all very, very proud in the last 2 weeks, which is Alison Jackson.
Action Jackson.
Yeah. Do you know where she gets the Action Jackson from?
I actually don't. I know that's just something that years ago we were on a project to nationals in, it must have been Ottawa.
Okay.
And Richard Wools, who was leading the project at the time, just called her that. So
it's stuff.
I don't know. Well, I don't know that he coined it. It was maybe something that she already had in place. But she's pretty high energy, so it's a really good descriptor for her.
She is. Maybe we'll dive into it next season when we actually maybe have Alison on the show. That would be really nice. But I cannot express to you what it meant personally for me, but our whole community, to watch Paris-Roubaix and watch her in the velodrome and then see her sprint and win. I cannot express to you how that felt for us. I don't know.
The same for us. It was, it's been a long time coming for her. She's just been getting better and better every year. And talk about persistence and just that hard work and that pursuing her dream, like unrelentless about or in that pursuit. So super exciting to watch that final sprint. I mean, it always is when you watch Paris-Roubaix, you know. I always think about when Matt Hayman won it. Came from behind with all his mechanicals, and then it was this big. So anytime any of those races or any of that race that the final group gets into the velodrome, it's just like you're on the edge of your seat. And then it was Alison was even more impactful. Like, what a great finish for her, and especially so new in the women's race, like so early in the women's race, sort of the evolution of it. So to have a Canadian show up, have it be Alison, who's probably one of the most engaging,
absolutely,
bike racers. Like she's just has the whole package, right?
Yeah. And very Canadian to like dance right after and just show her and just watch her lift up the giant rock at the end was like yeah, you could feel everyone in the community just sigh of not relief but just excitement. So I saw her at Okanagan Graveler last year. It's mind-bending to me that she shows up to a local race, does her thing, suffers with all of us, and then you see her win Paris-Roubaix.
Yeah. And that's actually one of the things I've always enjoyed about her. I haven't spent a lot of time with her, but she's as willing to sit with a group of junior athletes and just chat and kind of hand over her wisdom, but not in a way that's okay, children, let me speak to you.
Yes.
She's just sort of one of them, like anytime she's in a group that I've witnessed her. So it's, just so amazing. So amazing.
I think she epitomized that quote that we all have that, if someone's working hard, they're going to be a great cyclist. If someone's putting in that training, they're a great cyclist. But a cyclist that's unstoppable is the one that's having fun, and Alison Jackson is having fun.
Yeah, absolutely. So, absolutely.
Erin, I really want to understand your journey to being the CEO of Cycling BC, because I feel like it's generally not a straight path. You don't wake up in the morning and say, I want to be the head administrator for a sports organization.
No, nobody does that. So my journey has been non-traditional, I think one would say. I have been a cycling enthusiast. I was never competitive. Did a big bike trip in 2009 with my 2 children and my now ex-husband. Ex not related to the bike trip.
And his FTP was too low, Erin. I get it. It's fine.
And at the time, my son was 12.
Yeah.
And for 6 months, rode a bike that weighed more than he did. Came home and we took all the bags off the bike and he went really fast. So he started riding with a training group and then he started racing and then he discovered the velodrome. So between about 2010 or 11 maybe and 2016, he got really into bike racing. And I, for various personal reasons, was exploring a career change and started. And so I applied for a job at Cycling BC just as their finance and administration manager. And then a few months later, the CEO left.
Okay.
And I, having watched for 8 months, thought, I could do that job. I'm pretty passionate about cycling. It's the one sport I enjoy watching, and it's the one recreation activity that I feel the most at home in. So I love riding my bike. I love who I am when I'm riding my bike. So it just was a nice fit. And then my background is in dealing with board of directors and communication. And so didn't have a lot of sport administration background, but had a lot of other things that many sport administrators don't come to the table with. So I think that's sort of how I landed here.
Yeah.
A combination of passion for the sport, maybe a different background than my predecessors so I bring different skills.
Was there a particular change you wanted to see at that time?
Well, that's a good question. I think it's about engagement and transparency, which isn't always possible. And so that's actually one of the challenges that I was trying to understand. And, our resourcing realities combined with, we're a relatively small sport. In BC, we're relatively immature as a sport, as opposed to say Quebec, where the bike race scene is quite different and quite a bit more robust. So, the reality of what I was looking to change wasn't necessarily possible to the degree I would have liked to have changed it around, advance notice for things and making sure that we're keeping everyone informed of every development, because it's not always possible as much as we endeavor to do that,
No, absolutely. And I guess different markets are going to definitely be different in that regard. I think I got a sense of that when we even spoke to Michael Vandenham and Joannie, and we're still developing it in BC. But I say it to a lot of people, not only in our club, but others in the community. But I truly feel we're in the renaissance of cycling.
Yeah.
And I think we're seeing the evolution very quickly. I'm going to say almost too quickly, not only on the industry and the technology side, but also on the demands put on an organization like Cycling BC.
Yeah, that's an interesting way to frame it. It's cycling I think it's, as a sport, it's interesting because you don't need an organized, like a PSO or provincial sport organization to ride your bike. It's not a facility-based sport.
Yeah.
It's not a team-based competitive sport where you need to have organized teams who are competing against one another. So we're quite different from many other sports. And then we also layer in active transportation, layer in, the impacts on the environment, the impacts on health and safety or health and fitness that you can just do anytime, you know? So there's a lot of complexity there, I think, that we still have yet to figure out how it all fits together.
Yeah, I think one of the big questions I have also with Cycling BC is someone who reads the newsletter, goes on the website every season, does the membership thing, races. How much of the responsibility is commuting and the enthusiast versus, developing new talent with racing and supporting, weekend warrior race type.
So are you wondering about like how much our membership, like where's the membership fall out, or?
Just as an organization, your responsibility is to racers for sure, but is there some responsibility also to making sure that the enthusiast feels welcome and safe? And
Yeah, that's a great question, and it's actually something that I think a lot of my answers today are going to be, we're still trying to figure that out.
But that's okay. That's awesome, though.
So our membership is about, I'm going to say half and half.
Okay.
Race license holders and club members who are just recreational riders. They might do fondos, but mostly they ride with their club on the weekend.
Yes.
So we have, and then we have to layer in, we have a government mandate to make sure that we are, overseeing the sport from a policy and rules and, governance perspective, training coaches, training officials, supporting race organizers. There's sort of a lot going on. And then on top of that layer in, we have not just road racing, we have mountain biking, kind of two styles of mountain biking, right? We've got our gravity disciplines plus our endurance discipline. Then we have BMX.
Which is amazing.
Yeah,
it's truly an amazing
there's
sport.
a lot, and every group within those groups have a different set of priorities and different perspectives. So what we hope to do is support the recreational rider through education and then providing services like, our liability insurance and those things, the 24/7 accident insurance. But at the same time, elevate the race community through supporting organizers. And then hoping that some of the recreational riders might try a bike race and get excited about competition. Mm-hmm. And then, of course, there's developing athletes. And then there's how do we get more kids to see cycling as a sport? Because until you're a certain age, in BMX, that's not true. In BMX, kids see cycling as a sport early, like 2-3-year-olds are out on the tracks. But the other disciplines, there's often not a recognition or not an exposure to bike racing that's accessible to them early. So we're looking at every family sees baseball and hockey and soccer as an as something to put their kids in as an activity and to expose them to sport, but not necessarily bike racing. So that's the other piece we're trying to build is exposure to developing skills on the bike, and then how do we get those kids to see how great bike racing can be, so that's another sport alternative for kids who maybe aren't into team sports, or maybe it's complementing their other activities, or they're just saying, wow, like bike racing is really fun. Because we all know how fun bike racing is, but not everybody knows that.
No, absolutely. I mean, I have fond memories of cycling and bike racing as a kid, and I'm sure that was all supported through Cycling BC in high school, right? We had a high school team. You rode BC Cup, and you could go do provincials if you worked hard enough. And it was a space where I never felt personally included in ball sports like basketball or let's say we'll loop in hockey there too. Not good at it, not the right body type, did not feel accepted, got on a bike. Wow, I'm good at this. And I feel like for kids, sometimes athleticism can be a point of contention, I'll say, even in elementary school. And I think running or cycling gives them an alternative path of, hey, this is something you could actually be good at.
Yeah, I agree 100%. There's also lots of kids who team sport just isn't a good fit socially for them.
Exactly.
And I know like my son was very athletic and very good at pretty much any sport he tried. Mm-hmm. But he was really challenged personally by I don't like it that I don't have control and that other people might break the rules, right? And so he didn't enjoy it as much and didn't just have that same connection, but he got on a bike and now he's got complete control over his own strategy, his own fitness, how he approaches a race. It's all him. He might be part of a team, and there might be a team strategy on top of that. But so I think that was just a really good fit for him, not just physically, but also like emotionally and socially. So
it's a really, really good point. It's a strong point in that sense. So, Erin, I want to talk about the vision you have for Cycling BC in the future. If you had a magic wand, which I'm sure you do, or you're making the magic wand.
Don't I wish?
Where do you want to take this, or where do you want to even see it 15, 20 years down the line? And you'll say, yep, we did something good. It's where we want it to be.
We talk a lot about that, and we've just done a strategy review that we're about to kind of announce or let the membership know about, and really like the vision is that the cycling community in BC is connected and engaged across the province.
And what do you mean by that? Exactly.
So I mean that people who ride bikes for recreation and sport, right? Bike racers, are all feel part of a community that's connected through Cycling BC. And what that looks like is opportunity to participate in events in every region for every level of enthusiast and in every discipline. Now, that's a big vision. There's a lot to unpack there.
It is. I think the misconception is cycling is one sport. No, it's like 15 different sports.
Yeah, we say it's 6, and and what we're seeing is a move. People are looking for experiences.
Yeah.
As well as competition. So, the rise of the popularity of gravel, that's experience, right? That you go out, you do your race for the day. There's a social thing at the end. It's the popularity of fondos, where it's not just that you're doing the ride. There's something afterward. There's music, up at Whistler. They do a great job of creating a festival feel after the event. I think back way, in the 90s when people in my community were participating in the 24 hours of adrenaline up at Whistler, and that was an experience more than a race.
Yeah.
So I think that's I think I might have lost my train of thought, but
no.
So we are seeing a change in what some of the community want, and that speaks back to we have a diverse community who all want something different, and how do we as one organization help elevate those things, because we don't have the capacity to do it all ourselves. So how we connect the cycling community, that's one of our biggest challenges, because, there's a lot of talk in my world at the national level about how let's grow the sport of cycling. And we don't need to grow the sport. We need to somehow connect the sport so that there's coherence and maybe a little more efficiency in the system, because people are riding their bikes. Let's not kid ourselves. We're not necessarily gonna increase the number of people riding our bikes, but wouldn't it be nice if there was a connection across the province and the country through organizations like Cycling BC on the recreation and sport fitness side?
Yes.
To connect those people through services and products and programming and even just sharing information, so that we have more visibility. We can give our community more visibility of what are their options for participating in events across the province. Maybe they want something different than in their local community. Yeah,
and I love that vision, and I know it's coming because I see it every year. It's bigger. The events are more different. They're diverse. They accommodate so much. Like I'm really excited. I'm doing the Gravel Royale this year.
Oh, nice.
Which is such an interesting event. It's like basically, sure, there's stage racing and you can race it, but if you're not there for that, you have a great day on the bike. You do this camping environment and you move on, and you see a part of British Columbia and Alberta that, to be honest, you would never see if you weren't on a gravel bike or you weren't on a mountain bike.
Yeah.
And like those are those amazing experiences that are those connection points for a lot of people.
Yeah.
Before we move on, what's the misconceptions around Cycling BC that you hear, or that, give you a little bit of maybe irritation or something you want to change with the perception? Maybe or even around membership fees. What is the misconceptions that you kind of are faced with, or the whole organization is
Yeah,
faced with?
I think the biggest one we've already touched on is that each pocket of our community thinks that we only do that one thing.
Yes.
So you have, excuse me, you have, like, I understand people don't want to pay more money for something. And as a provincial sport organization, our direct service delivery is limited. Our ability to reach individual members is pretty limited, right?
Yeah.
So if the base benefits of buying a Cycling BC membership, either the ability to race or the insurance or whatever, are not appealing to you, there's a lack of understanding about why would I pay that money, right?
Yeah.
So that's one of them. I think that the Canadian sports system is something that I have made the assumption that the average sport enthusiast doesn't really spend any time diving into or understand. So there's a misconception, I think, that we have buckets of money and tons of people that can service the community, and we don't have buckets of money or tons of people. So, and we're not an office of 50 people sitting answering the phones.
No,
and
how big
answering
is your
questions.
team, Erin?
So right now we're 10, 2 of whom are shared with Cycling Canada.
Wow.
So 8 people. These are, can I just adjust these? Sorry.
Yeah, of course.
So 8 people are sort of dedicated to 100% to Cycling BC.
Wow.
And then 2 are working on some pilot projects with Cycling Canada in a sort of a shared services arrangement. So, we don't have a lot of people
No.
servicing the entire province, right? And so we're, there's a misconception that we focus only on the Lower Mainland or only on the South Coast, despite our efforts otherwise. And we're also challenged by geography to actually service those communities that aren't right close to Vancouver. So
Yeah. No, it's a big province. It's a big province. And yeah, no, that baffles me. I didn't know the team was only about 10 or 12 shared with Canada Cycling as well. So that's amazing that you guys actually service everyone. I mean, here's my hot take. I'll take all the hate for this, but when I was going through the membership process this time, you guys increased prices, no issue, because I mean, the sport is so inherently expensive anyway that my little bit to the community to pay a membership fee is one road tire for me. I go through 5 road tires in a year, or gravel tires. I pay $125, $150 sometimes during COVID because everyone was searching for parts.
yeah.
So I thought not a big deal, because sometimes I look at that membership fee and say, you know what, maybe I'm wrong, maybe I'm right about this, but I'm encouraging youth cycling, making sure there's a place for that 16-year-old to go race when I'm paying my membership fee. I generally don't even think of myself with my race license and the money benefiting me. I'm like, okay, it's benefiting tons and tons of other people. And yeah, that's one less road tire I buy in the year. So in that sense, I think, a lot of people in our club, I'll say, felt that way, that, yeah, okay, they're increasing it. Sure. My road tires are $35 more expensive than they were 4 years ago.
Yeah, I think that's another piece that, it's challenging for us because we're trying to balance accessibility. And, one of our objectives is to make, when you talked about vision, what I would love is that if I pulled up our membership stats, that our membership reflects the population in BC, which means we need more women. We need more people from other communities. And so how do we balance accessibility with the economic reality of prices are increasing, and we're not immune to inflation. We're not immune to the economic realities of 2023. And our government funding, that's one thing the community may or may not know, but our government funding for sport has not changed since I've been in the organization.
And you've been at the organization
since 2016. So, and when I say it hasn't changed, I mean it hasn't changed dollar for dollar. There's no cost of living increase, and there's more sports accessing government funding. So the pot is being diluted, which, it's great. Sport is fantastic. And I think that all of those realities, and I do believe that there's a belief in society that sports should be volunteer run. Mm-hmm. So we have these layers of safe sport and all of the stuff that's in the media about abuse in sport has now become a federal and provincial priority for sport to address. Mm-hmm. There's no money for that. No new money for that, right?
Yeah.
We are trying to address diversity in sport. No additional funding for that. So you have this like conception that we're getting more money, but we're not getting more money from government. Mm-hmm. So and because of COVID, and I think because of I think the changes in our world right now, philanthropy and sponsorship is not as robust as it was pre-COVID. A lot of businesses are still recovering, so their ability to help us advance our initiatives is limited, or seems to be. So, there's a lot of financial pressure to keep things going because we still have, 5,300 members in the province who would like us to answer the phone. Right?
Answer your emails.
And we want, and that's, we're here to service our membership, right?
Yeah.
And in addition to just that, there's some government priorities that we are accountable to. Mm-hmm. So so the membership fee piece, I think, it's a challenge because we do recognize that everything is going up, and this is just one other thing that. And as I said earlier, if you don't personally see the value in, say, the insurance, or you don't ride with the club, or you're not going to race, what's the incentive to purchase a Cycling BC license, right, or membership? And I do, when you talked about misconceptions, I do think we still struggle with our own community understanding who we are and what we do and what we offer, because every year we get 2 or 3 questions about what does the insurance cover, because people just don't necessarily, it's not front and center.
Yes.
They don't think about it. They buy their membership because their club requires them to, but they don't ever, they're not thinking beyond that. It's like, well, if I have to do it, I'll do it, and then I'll just ride with my club. So we need to do a better job at letting the community know what your membership actually gives you, in addition to what your membership is supporting, which is athlete development and coach development, and the insurance and the wider sports system, events in the province and races. And, we try to support Grand Fondos as much as possible and get some visibility. So,
yeah. And I think it's a really good point, because I know we struggle with it sometimes at the club level. We absolutely need it if you're going to be a member for us, the last drop. But I think we have to even do a better job of working in collaboration with Cycling BC, and it's not this, how do I say, parent-kid relationship. It has to be one that's done in collaboration and in support of one another. So we hear you, and I think we'll try and do a way better job of it next year when we introduce new members to the club, and everyone has to do that membership circuit again.
Yeah, and we're also working on, for 2023, my strategic focus is really about engagement. We've launched an engagement survey, which we just completed. I'm pulling together a club council so that we can build better relationships with our clubs, because our clubs are our best partners for bringing more people to the sport, or more people to the organization. Lots of people are doing this sport already.
Yeah.
So our clubs are our best partners in that. And I think what often happens is, in sport, we get our heads down and we forget about our really important partners, or we don't pay enough attention to them. So that's an initiative that I've just done some outreach around, getting people to put their hand up if they want to be part of this club council idea, because what it does is allows us to disseminate information to club leaders, who can then disseminate information to their members. And maybe that's a way that we can help our members understand, what it is we're offering.
Yes.
So they can be, make an informed decision. Like, I don't support that, so I'm I'm going to join only because I have to, or I do support that, and how can I help more? How can I
and
be
for
a bigger part of it?
The dialogue to be more, yeah, like I said, collaborative and engaged as opposed to combative.
Yeah.
So no, that's fantastic to hear. We're here for that, and we'll support that 100%.
Yeah,
no doubt.
we're excited. We've had I've heard from a few club leaders, and I'll do another push now that I've kind of got the initiative off the ground, so we can do our first meeting, and it won't be onerous, because we also recognize that the people who are members, particularly clubs, you're doing this because you like riding your bike, not because you like doing administration or, like you're all volunteering your time to support your club initiatives.
Yes.
So to ask for more, we're also really aware of people have limited time, and so how can we make the most efficient use of the time together to hear, to collaborate, and then to also have our club leadership help us with a "Did you know" campaign, right? Did you know your Cycling BC membership includes
exactly
list
this,
here,
this, and this, yeah. So, Erin, what's your perfect bike ride?
Oh,
is it with
that's
family? Is it with
great
friends?
Question.
Is it alone?
It's alone. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. I like riding with friends.
Yeah.
I'm often riding with friends who are more fit than me, so then it's hard.
Me too. It's a problem, right?
By myself, yeah. I can just ride at my own pace. I used to live in Victoria, so my perfect bike ride was actually just a waterfront loop out basically from where I lived in Esquimalt all the way around the water up to Sydney and then home along the Lochside Trail. Was just on a perfect sunny day.
Beautiful. Not windy.
So fantastic.
Somehow in Victoria.
Somehow,
not windy.
yeah, somehow. Well, I don't even mind the wind. It's as long as it's not raining.
Yep. It's every day.
Yeah. And then, when I moved back, I grew up here in North Van, and when I moved back, I live in Lynn Valley, right? So I get on my bike and I go down a hill, and then I often go up a hill and then down a hill and then up a hill. So the prospect of an e-bike is feeling very, very interesting to me right now.
Yeah. No, I'm very jealous sometimes when I see those guys go up the hills But no, I totally resonate with that. It's really nice to go out on your own, and I think that's what you were talking about with cycling. It's a unique sport in that sense. You don't have to go out with a ton of people. You can have that huge, amazing, I'll say endorphin hit, and you go out and you do it on your own, and and it's amazing for that. So,
what's your perfect ride?
It's a really good question. I'm gonna say it's with a few close friends of mine. That's usually the perfect ride for me. But sometimes I absolutely need the ride alone. I think Demonstration Forest is the best.
Yeah,
even
that's
for road and gravel.
Pretty special.
I don't think we understand how special it is. Yeah, it's insane. I don't even understand who made the decision to put that road and cut it right through the mountain like that. It was amazing.
Yeah.
So,
well, thank goodness for them, because that really, that is a special place to ride.
Yeah, and I think cycling has a unique ability to give you a huge appreciation for the environment you're in.
It really does. Yeah, I mean, I think about the experience I had in 2009 riding in Europe, living off our bikes, right?
Yeah.
And we had people who we didn't speak their language, but they would run out and offer us water from their yards. Just the ability, like you're just living, you meet the most amazing people, and it's just a slower way to be in the world, right? So I think that, and that's the other thing about cycling. You can use it for tourism, you can use it for commuting, you can use it for fitness, you can use it for competition. Like it's just, we're really uniquely positioned to touch so many parts of life with our bikes.
No, totally. This is something I talk about my wife with a lot. Is there anything we can do in the general community for people to start shifting the way they think about cycling, whether it's drivers or it's the general public? Because everyone who travels to Europe in our community and comes back and says, oh, wow, it's hugely different. People who are driving past you love that you're on a bike. They think you're a hero. They wave at you. They take as long as they want to make sure you're safe, and they pass you. They hand out food randomly. We have a close friend who's in Girona right now. She says they love the fact that you're on a bike. Is there anything we can do in our city to educate people? We have a bad experience from a club member probably every week with a car or even a person on a sidewalk yelling at us.
Yeah, it's a challenge. It starts with education, right? And, it's something that I think about a lot. And it starts small. One person tells one person and, encourages a friend to have an experience. I always say that I don't always say this. One of the things I wish we had is that you're not able to get your driver's license until you've commuted on a bike for 3 to 6 months. So you have had the experience of riding your bike in traffic. And then, of course, you'll be more aware of what it's like to be that person on a bike. I'm not going to change the driver education system in our province, I don't think, personally. Although I do tell everyone I meet in government or anybody, any chance I get, I say that. And it really comes down to education, right? And then the other thing I talk about a lot with people in the advocacy world, or when I get a chance to talk to government, is cycling infrastructure is amazing. I love to see cycling infrastructure. And it's not always the best thing for our community. Because your last drop rides, you can't use a bike lane for that experience. And it's not safe for you to. However, the community says there's a bike lane, why aren't they in it? Mm-hmm. So I think that's a question that we have to start, or a thing we have to start talking about. Like when you see a group of riders out there, they might be training for the Olympics. They might be training to get onto the national team, or they might be just training because, they're doing something social like you would do at the soccer field. So I think it's just about education, and it's opportunities like this to chat about it, opportunities to talk to government, and then using the voice of our community. And this comes back to what's the power of connecting through one organization is, you can be a single cyclist and have a bad experience. You can be in a club, and that bad experience then becomes something that 30 people, 50 people, 10 people start talking about and sharing. Mm-hmm. Now you have a provincial sport organization, and that one voice becomes 5,000.
Yes.
And there's a lot more willingness to listen to 5,000 people who say they want the same thing than one at a time. So what we can do is, I think, be vocal and try and bring the community together, whether it's through, visit the Cycling BC website, or, send Cycling BC a message asking for more information or asking for help. And even if those people aren't our members,
yes,
the more voices we hear about cycling, we can work with our strategic partners who are in the advocacy world. We have a strategic partnership with the BC Cycling Coalition, who does provincial advocacy. And through them, a relationship through Hub, which is really focused on Vancouver.
Hub's fantastic.
So the more voices we can bring together for making cycling more accessible and safer, I think, that's the power of community, right?
No, yeah. Absolutely. There's a funny little video going around Instagram right now of exactly what you were talking about. I don't know what country this was in, but they put, during driver's training, they put someone on a stationary bike, and then they get a bus to drive by this person on the stationary bike to see how scary it actually is.
Yeah.
But yeah, we'll get there. And I know what you're talking about, and I really appreciate that you said sometimes the bike lane is not appropriate for every cyclist. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I had an experience a few weeks ago. I'm with a bunch of U23 riders, Team Canada, Red Truck, and yeah, we had lots of cars with very choice words, and we have that thought in our mind. Do they realize that these are the kids who may go represent us at the Olympics or go win that world championship?
Yeah, Alison Jackson's one of those people.
Yeah,
right.
100%.
Like and when she's out training, riding in a bike lane isn't going to be safe for her. Or the people using the bike lane, like, the people using that bike lane are using it to commute or with their little kids or just learning how to ride, out there in the world. So I think that infrastructure is amazing.
Yeah.
And it's needed, especially if we're going to reach our active transportation targets and, really impact the environment through getting people out of their cars. And, you wouldn't complain about people practicing soccer on a soccer field. Unfortunately, a lot of our sport is on
open roads.
Yeah. And that's just road, right? And then we also have to factor in, we've got mountain bikers, there's access for mountain bikers. I think that the trail associations are doing a fantastic job of advocating for that. And other park users they're not always supportive of that, right? So there's a lot of competing priorities, even within Cycling BC, but then also just in society in general. So, I think the most important piece of it is how can we be the bigger person in those circumstances so that we're not perpetuating the stereotype
absolutely,
guy in spandex or rude mountain bike trail user or however you want to frame it, right? So.
Yeah, and I think that's the job even of us as a club. I think I did a little education with one of my rides of if we do have the angry car and you have to roll up right beside them at a stoplight and there has been that altercation, is to say, I'm sorry, do you want to pull over and have a conversation about it? Has that ever worked? Absolutely not. But at least we're trying to advocate for at least a positive dialogue.
Yeah.
And that's what we have to do. But we have a little more time, just 5 minutes here, Erin. But I want to understand finally from your perspective what cycling has personally meant to you. Your son's in it. What is that feeling as a parent to watch him race, watch him succeed, watch him go through hard times in the sport?
Be terrified every time he goes out on
even as a cyclist? Because my mom was terrified. She said I'd never get on a bike. And my wife is like, yeah, I don't want to get on a bike.
Yeah.
But even as a cyclist, you still are terrified.
Well, I mean, there was a point when my son was racing that I...
And what was he racing?
He raced mostly track and road.
Oh, okay. Yeah, track.
And I really had wished that I had invested in Tegaderm because we spent a lot of money on that.
Yeah.
$300 worth of gauze later.
Yeah.
So, I mean, from a parenting perspective, anytime you see your kids thrive, find something that clearly is the thing that they love in the world. Mm-hmm. There's something, I mean, you can't even describe that feeling of watching your child win a race and the pure joy, just the pure joy. I mean, like watching Allison Jackson.
Yeah.
And I'm actually getting goosebumps just thinking about that.
Yeah.
I think that cycling in particular is, there's a lot of grit you need and perseverance. It's a hard sport. There's a lot of isolation if you're training to be at the high level. I don't know many other sports where you'd ask somebody to go out and do 5 and 6 hour ride by themselves, like a training session by themselves. Cycling does it. In the early days when my son was first sort of in that targeted space, they were bringing athletes from other sports into cycling. They would do testing, and if you were, you weren't going to make it as a hockey player, but you had the ethic and everything else, you could try it as a cyclist. And I know my son was training with a guy who came from baseball who was like, "This is too hard for me. This is really hard." So there's a satisfaction in seeing, your children find something that they love and then participate in it and then have some success. It's equally hard to see them go through hard times.
Yep.
But there's also something around what they learned from that, and just the perseverance and the word's escaping me. It'll come to me. It's pretty satisfying. I have a photo of my son from track nationals a few years ago where he had won silver in the Madison with another BC athlete. And the photo, they're hugging, and the photo captured just that absolute joy and like pride. There's nothing better than that. Like there just really isn't, right? So for me, it's pretty fantastic. Yeah.
That's outstanding. Erin, thank you. This was wonderful.
Well, thank you.
That's a perfect way to end. And you were a perfect guest to have on the last episode this year. And we hope to have you and your friends from Cycling BC back next year. So
yeah, I'd love to have you guys chat with Joel Harwood, our head coach.
I would love that. I would love that.
Yeah.
But thank you so much. Let's go for a ride soon.
Yeah. Thank you very much. Really appreciate you guys having me.
Thank you. And we end with a fist bump. Thank you guys. And that's it.
Thanks for checking out the Super Domestique podcast. Follow us on Instagram or find us at thelastdrop.cc to learn more.